Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer,
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker.
and this is episode number 94
Oh,
of the
we
Hustling
are
Sideways
rolling.
podcast.
And I'm dressed up. I wanted to do like green and red for a
Yeah,
little Christmas vibe today.
yeah, but we're gonna air this way after Christmas.
But either way, it's still a Christmas vibe.
Sure.
Treat every day like Christmas. Alan, have you never seen the movie Elf?
Oh, that's a
That's
very
a
good point.
problem that you may have. So apparently, Alan's not in the spirit, but I am, regardless of what date it is. And
Honestly,
yeah,
never really in the spirit for Christmas.
not a Christmas guy.
Not really.
Oh,
No,
interesting. You
never
don't,
have been. No.
not at all. That's
Oh,
surprising to me.
I shouldn't say it. I don't know. I have a December birthday, so it's
Yeah,
always like,
right. I mean, you should feel like a
no,
more
no, no.
love.
It just takes away from the December birthday.
But yours is early enough though to not have it be
I'm
like
all about me, man. I'm just
just
selfish.
narcissistic and selfish, and that's
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 why we
what,
do this podcast.
that's right. Yeah, we want to hear ourselves talk. Right,
Yeah.
it's perfect.
No, we would love to hear some other people talk
We
as
do.
well. And that's
That's
why
right.
we have another great guest here on the show today. Today we've got Charles Rose. He is a business coach and an executive coach.
Hmm.
Charles, welcome to the show. Welcome to Hustling Sideways.
Thank you
Thank you for
so much,
joining us.
gentlemen. And I
Yeah.
also have a birthday in December for what it's worth. So
Well,
I'm
Wait,
all
when is
fantastic.
about that.
yours?
Yeah,
What's that?
What day is yours?
14th.
Oh, okay, I'm the 8th. So
yeah.
close.
Same year. You guys are like almost twins. Yeah, that's
Pretty
it.
much brothers. Yeah.
That's right.
Basically,
Awesome.
basically. Charles, where are you checking in from today? Where in the world are you?
Right now I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Oh,
Oh,
hey, we've
nice.
got
Our second Canadian.
second, or have we had any more
Yeah, yeah.
besides?
Dave Campbell.
Yeah,
That's from
Dave Campbell,
Canada.
but I
I
don't know
think that
if
was
we.
it.
I thought we had another one, maybe. I
Well,
don't know.
you know what? Number two or number three, either way, we're
But
happy
I was
to have
born
them
in
all.
the US, so kind of
Yeah.
a
Oh,
mix.
there we
And,
go. Okay.
Well, hello,
Where were you born in the U.S.?
North Carolina.
Very nice. Okay. And
climate change, a little bit of climate change.
that's right. Imagine. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, hello from Canada,
Thank you.
down here. So,
Yeah. Great.
um, tell us a little bit about your background. So, obviously, born and raised in North Carolina, and then came up to Canada. But let's talk about some of the steps in between here.
Right
Um,
on.
were you always entrepreneurial kind of thing? Were you, the kid that always thought maybe I had the lemonade stand, or was, you know,
Yeah, I was
ca-
always fascinated by the idea of being an entrepreneur. I think in third grade we did something. It was like everybody got to have a pretend store, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Um, but I was also really taken with technology. When I was 6, my dad got elected to the U.S. Congress, so we moved to Northern Virginia, and that's where I grew up. He ultimately grew into being chairman of the House Administration Committee, which oversees all the office equipment for the Hill. So he
Mhm.
was kind of a gatekeeper for the tech. And so he got to get samples of all these computers back in the late 70s, early 80s. He'd bring some of it home for me to play with. And I got a real early education in technology. And that set me up ultimately to want to be a software developer. And then from there, I got interested in writing books, publishing newsletters, doing other entrepreneurial stuff. And
Mhm.
then after that, I thought, well, um, why not just start a proper company and do something different? And so,
sure.
Do you remember any of the tech that he like bought home, like specifically where you're like this
oh
particular
yeah,
item was
one was
awesome?
a Plato terminal from Control Data Center, and
Yeah.
that was a University of Champaign in Iowa, and sorry, Illinois
Yeah. Yeah.
is where they were. And oh my God, it was so cool. It was all about education, but a lot of the guys had written games on it, and so we
Okay.
had like D&D, Star Wars, some of that kind of stuff. It was incredible.
Awesome. That's like Christmas every day in your house, and you just
You
get a
just
new
got a
Well,
new
it
game.
was.
game.
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay,
great.
so I was gonna say, oh yeah, we're very similar in the fact that like we're both kind of tinkerers with stuff, but mine was very much like I have a video editing background, and
Oh,
like
sweet.
I could make the CD player play the music while my skateboarding video was going, and then record it. Um, Different level when we're talking about,
Hey, man.
U.S. government technology that you're able to play around with.
But I mean,
Um,
I was a teenager, so it was an incredible learning tool for me.
Mhm.
And the most fun part of that was I got to meet Steve Jobs. I got to talk to him anyway.
Wow.
He came up to pitch Apple hardware, and my dad was like, "Hey, do you want to talk to Steve Jobs?" So I got like a minute on the phone with him. It was like a 15-minute call, but I was supposed to have a couple of questions ready, and I fired him out about that Apple II Plus, and he just like rattled them off with such knowledge and passion, and I was just blown away. So that
Was he
contributed.
like was he known then as like, like did you know who you were talking to? I guess maybe
I
I'll say it
did.
that way.
I did. I
Okay.
was such a, I mean, I was an Apple fanboy pretty
Yeah,
much
that's
then.
cool.
So,
Yeah,
but this
yeah.
was from an Apple II Plus, and I had a couple of friends in school that had one, and that was kind of, that was an obsession.
That's really cool. I can
Wow.
imagine just like the fiery passion behind the way he would like talk about some of those products. It
Oh,
had to be like
totally.
awesome. Yeah.
Well,
Just like
yeah, I mean, we talk about, us having passion projects and
hmm
side projects. I mean, was
has
it
changed
Apple
the world.
started in a garage, right? I
Yeah,
believe,
right. It's pretty
something
much
like
how
that.
yeah, it got it kicked off.
And yeah, and really just the explosion from there.
That's cool. Were there any other famous folks you had exposure to?
No, he was by far the most. I didn't
That was it.
realize.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just him? Oh my God. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
What else you
NBD.
got?
Yeah, yeah, right. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, that's awesome.
So this I'm assuming leads into, going into college and your whole background, education background, based around tech and based around, trying to start a career in that area, right?
For sure. I started in university and I went several years into a computer science degree. But at the time, what I was actually doing at work, this was the advent of the IBM PC
Mm,
in the early 80s. They were still teaching mainframes and mini computers at the university level. So eventually it was like, I'm learning more at work. And so I abandoned the degree because it wasn't doing anything for me. And then just
Mhm.
continued to learn from doing at work. And then that moved into being a contractor. And then that moved into like wanting to start other businesses with other people.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is kind of the dream, right? To
that's
be a
it.
step
Yeah.
ahead on everybody, like, because then you're immediately in demand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that that's something that comes from, learning a little bit out of your environment, wherever that is,
Hmm.
whether it's school, work, whatever, being able to pull some things from there.
Yeah.
But to the level that you were able to do that and push beyond that and go, well, okay, I'm learning the legit cutting edge technology, the
Hmm.
newest of the new.
Yeah,
Uh, so, you know,
That's sweet. Did,
bye
did, did did
college.
you get space to tinker a little bit too, like professionally? I know,
a
like
little
you
bit.
probably learned
Yeah,
that at such a young age,
yeah,
and
which was great. And
Mhm.
having that was amazing. And so it's
Mhm.
like I have a deadline to produce this particular code by this date, but then I'm in there trying to learn it, in real time and solve the problem as well. So, but it was
Yeah.
an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, and this is a very early form, early days of coding and
Mhm.
development and all
Mhm.
of that. So, there's probably I'm assuming, a small knowledge base of people that actually know how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And you were at the forefront of that. So did you have anybody that was kind of like maybe a mentor or somebody that you could look up to besides maybe just like a coworker where you
Or
guys are
Steve
just
Jobs.
figuring it out? Yeah, or Steve
All
Jobs.
right.
Right. Awesome question. I didn't really. A lot of it was self-taught, or I would have peers, like other friends who were programmers, and so we could swap knowledge and that kind of thing. But a lot of it was trial and error, reading magazines. This was even like pre-internet and books, and
Mhm.
you had to just kind of play and learn as you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you ever break anything? Because as somebody that has a website and has to do my minimal version of coding that is just enough to be dangerous, I know how bad it is when something goes wrong, but I'm assuming back in those days, if something went wrong, it went really wrong. So what did
Oh
you break?
God, yeah. Oh yeah. And one of the big jobs I was on was creating a managing a database for a company who was building a product to lobby Congress. And it was about to give people, well, lobbyists, searches that they weren't able to do before. And so this database was very critical. It was like, tell me the 10 congressmen that voted yes on these bills who received this much money from these different sources and that kind of thing. No one had been able to do that before. So I felt a huge amount of pressure to get this right. And yeah, absolutely. Back then it would take so long to do an operation. I would have it tell me what percentage done it was, like a progress bar, and it would be like, okay, it would take an hour to do like 1% or something, like not
Oh
that
my
bad,
goodness.
but almost. So I'd have to come back the next day to see how my code worked, and then you'd get there the next day and it'd be like it failed. A couple of days of that in a row was really disheartening. And
I
it's
can
like
Oh yeah.
imagine.
eventually get it working and you don't have to do that kind of thing anymore. But
Yeah. What did you learn from that? Like, I mean, that's got it to come in
patience. Oh my
yeah.
God, patience. And then that's where we start to get into the life skills of some of this stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
It
Did you
is
ever?
amazing to think
Yeah.
like, I mean, now we're like, oh, if let's say we're working in the AI space on
Mm-hmm.
stuff. If the AI doesn't give you the exact perfect answer in like a
You
millisecond,
throw the
you're like,
computer out the
what's
window. Yeah.
what's with this thing?
Uh-huh.
But I
Exactly.
mean, and like I remember editing videos back in the day and having to set the laptop down overnight
Oh
and then
yeah,
finish
render for
rendering.
a while. Yeah.
But to have an entire day of like just a
Oh my
search
God.
Yeah.
Yes.
to just pull from data,
That's wild.
unbelievable. So. Is there, at what point does this become like, okay, I'm going to make a business though out of developing some of this tech and being able to take this product or take my knowledge out to companies?
It unfolded in an interesting sort of way. Like I met a couple that I partnered with, and we had a company in Rhode Island that did advertising technology, and that we did okay with it, but it was a long story because we ended up this would be a whole other podcast episode, and a professional con artist ended up getting involved and sucked us
Oh.
dry. However, after that opportunity, I found a guy online, and at the time I was still programming, and I needed this guy to help me with Windows dial-up networking, Windows 95 dial-up
Hmm.
networking, if you'll
I
believe it.
recall that one. Yeah.
And
Nope.
um, and he had written a utility for it, and so I said, well, but he could only take checks. Because back in the day, this was 1997, it was almost impossible to get a merchant account unless you had a physical storefront. There was no
Mhm.
Stripe. It was not easy. And
Yeah.
PayPal had just started that year. And so I said, well, look, man, why don't we take credit cards for your software and we'll see how this goes. He was usually making, I think, about 1,000 a month. He made like
Mhm.
6,000 a month when we took credit cards.
Once we
And
were
we were
able to
like,
do that.
oh my God, there are thousands of authors out there like you. This could be our business.
Hmm.
So he
Wow.
immediately quit school. He was a freshman at university. And, I was older, but not a ton older. And so, yeah, so we started this company together. He built the platform. I did a lot of the big legal and business aspects of it and some initial sales. We put it all together and we did 200,000 the first year in sales, 2 million the second. We were on track to do 10 million the third. And we got a call from our biggest competitor, was Digital River in Minnesota. And they said, we want to buy you. And
Oh,
our heads explode and we negotiate a deal, and then we get out. And it was like one of the best things that ever happened and one of the worst things that ever happened, because after that I realized a lot of what was running it is I wanted to make my dad proud of me. Well,
Mhm.
he was, but that wasn't as deeply fulfilling as I might have hoped. And then so it's like, well, what am I doing with my life now? And who am I? And did I even earn this? Did I work hard enough? Do I deserve this? All these questions start kind of coming in.
hmm.
And so I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time, and a girlfriend said, hey, why don't you work with my coach and just at least talk to her? So I did, and working with her just completely changed my life in terms of getting to know who I really am and start to build the life that I want versus trying to either survive or please everybody.
Sure.
Mm.
Now there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Because I have to imagine first let's focus on just a little bit that moment of like Eureka, this is going to be our business,
hmm
Sure.
and then that quick ride up, because you said that's a course of 3 years
Yes.
that all of a sudden things are just taking off and
Like doubles and
essentially,
quadruples and quadruple. Like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and essentially you have the framework for e-commerce, which is now everywhere, you know.
Exactly.
So in those moments though, when that money starts coming in, like, do you start feeling pressure a little bit of
Oh, yeah,
like,
sure.
like, hey, we have to make sure this thing keeps going? Like, did you have, I guess the first question, how many employees did you have during this kind of ride that you were building this thing out, or was it just you and your partner?
So at first it was me and my partner, but he was at university. So once he started with the company that we built, not long after he pulled his one of his best friends, and they were a couple, but they were also good friends with my partner. So they left university, started working for us as well. Once we were getting the sales, we always just reinvested everything that came in into new employees or new tech or new. We didn't pay
Mhm.
ourselves for most of it until maybe the last year.
Sure.
Wow.
That's
So
amazing.
we grew to
And
about 8 or 10, but
okay.
we didn't need, and most of that was customer service. We really didn't need to be too big.
Yeah, but you were generating millions of dollars at that point with a very small team.
Right.
Uh, and then I think there's a certain number of entrepreneurs that get into a business and have this full intention of selling from the
Hmm.
start. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like I'm
Right.
gonna develop this thing, I'm
Yeah.
gonna grow it, and then Apple or
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or Google or someone is gonna come buy us out. Um, Once you hit that point though, it's amazing to hear that the reality of that though is then you go, well, what's next? Right? Like you have to kind of rethink so
Yeah.
much of what
And
is going
like,
on.
did I do who did like who's this for? Because I mean that's what you were wrestling with,
Yeah,
right? Like, yeah.
exactly.
But so
Exactly.
what you see what's this phone call like? Like you get the phone call, are they like, hey, we're interested in you? Like, how does that go?
Well, it was just very formal. The guy was like, hi, my name is Perry Steiner. I'm the president of Digital River. We've been noticing your company for a long time, and to cut to the chase, we would be interested in an acquisition. Would you like to hear more, kind of thing? And once I get off the floor, it's like, sure, I'd love to hear more.
I bet. Yeah, your jaw drops and that's what yeah. Like how long I think a lot of people like have no idea like
Yeah,
how long does that take to like
three
formalize
months.
three
From
months?
the
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
initial call to the close was about a 3 month process because, of course, we had to hire lawyers. They already had theirs. They had to do their thing. We had to negotiate terms. They
Hmm.
wanted me and my partner to stick around for at least a year or two, so we had
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
figure out all that.
And was that like right away, was it unanimous to say yes to this or did this
Oh
take a
yeah.
lot of thought? It was. Okay.
Mm.
You were ready to roll.
No, the thing is, we thought we were worth a bit more, so we were able to
Sure.
negotiate more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Having the power to negotiate is a good thing. I think that's actually a very good lesson, by the
I
way.
would be on
Negotiation.
I would be on pins and needles for the
Yeah,
entire
the whole
three
time.
months.
I
I
would
wouldn't
sleep.
sleep.
Yeah, that's right.
You do
Totally.
kind of hold your breath
I
because it's
bet you
like
do.
this isn't
Yeah.
guaranteed, and if at any moment somebody got cold feet, it's like, well, this is off. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Did you have to keep it like wildly confidential
Yes,
too?
yes. One
Yeah.
of the first things you sign is a non-disclosure. So
Yeah. Oh man. Are you still under the NDA? Are you able to talk about it? I'm just
No, no, no.
kidding.
He's
no, I can talk about it.
Right. Right. That's yeah. That's so I mean like what a like a an exciting and terrifying thing to be a part
Oh
of,
yeah,
you know.
I would be worried that if I said one thing wrong in a
Hmm.
meeting,
Sure,
the
sure.
whole deal's
Yeah, it's
up.
done.
The
Right.
million plus, millions
Yeah,
of dollar
I'm
deal
thinking
is
like
up.
Frank Costanza, like no, no deal, no deal.
Oh yeah, yeah. From
Like,
Seinfeld.
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so moving from that, I mean, you've sold the company.
Hmm.
You
Mhm.
have now you're working with a coach. Now you're trying to kind of reorganize and get things
Yeah.
together. What was kind of the biggest thing that you were learning from your coach at that point, and what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
I think that ultimately it was I that was in charge of my life, and if there was things that I didn't like, it was up to me to change it. But I
Hmm.
also realized that I expected myself to do that without having the tools to do it properly. And one of those things was a tool that was around getting clear about, where I wanted to be in my career or with a person or with
Hmm.
myself.
Hmm.
And that involved the first part of that tool is getting clear about your purpose. Why do I want to have this business? Why do I want to be married? Why do I want to be anything? And
Hmm.
Yeah.
so defining that purpose was massive for me. It was like, oh, wow, I get to be in the driver's seat on this and articulate what's actually what I want. Because I'd really been running on trying to please everybody,
Hmm.
uh, as a lot of things in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think again, entrepreneurs maybe are just like so short-term thinking on some of these things
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
they have to be in the micro of running a business
Yeah.
that yes, the macro can get lost in that. So that's very, very much impactful. How does that eventually, I guess, turn to you starting to coach others and work with other people to develop what they want to do?
So one of the other careers that of kind of what I wanted to be when I grew up was a therapist or someone who was supporting other people. And I
Hmm.
remember telling my dad about that when I was about 11, and he was like, kind of stick with the technology, like it'll set you up better in life.
He
But
saw a
I
dollar
also,
sign.
but after selling the company, it was like I started to go back to that and I started to really look at how I was feeling from all of these insights and how I was feeling from letting go of weight from the past, from thought patterns that didn't serve me anymore. You know,
Hmm.
what I felt so much lighter for letting go of resentments and getting clear about sort of who am I and what do I really want in this life? And that ultimately I'm in the driver's seat. So how do I want to navigate that? So
Yeah.
I realized that felt incredible. And if I could do that for other people, that would feel incredible for me too. And so that was the start of
Yeah.
the coaching piece.
Did you have a moment where you were like, I want to do this? Like, was there like a profound
Yeah.
moment? Like,
Yeah.
and how did that feel when that popped up?
Um, Challenging and daunting because it was a business in an area I'd never been in. I knew tech, I
Yeah.
got tech, but I didn't know coaching at all as a
Mhm.
business base, how to market to it. I think I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, I think, and ultimately where I'm headed is trying to combine my technology background with my coaching background and produce. I'm designing some apps now. I'm starting to think about how AI could be used in a coaching context, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, that is probably such a high pressure field altogether, just modern tech. You think of all the Silicon Valley stuff and
Hmm.
everybody that is working out there, and they are under enormous pressure all the time because
Yeah.
you're also expendable at some of those companies,
Hmm.
right? Like, so they're probably worried day in, day out about not getting fired and not
Yeah.
getting, whatever,
Yeah.
or bought out and or a merger happens or
Hmm.
something and
Hmm.
they're out of luck, right? So that's a
Yeah.
very high pressure situation. And to have your background with the tech background and to have actually gone through a merger and or an acquisition, things like that, I'm
Yeah.
sure is an incredible asset to them.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yeah. Did you have like a sense that like let's try this and see what happens, or were you all in on making this a reality in your new career?
I was all in, but it was progressive. I wasn't all in day one.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those things where I would do it for a little bit and then I'd get cold feet and then I'd kind of run away. And then eventually, I had several kind of kicks at the can before it was like, all right, I really need to commit to this to make this work.
Right.
And then
Right.
I did.
Sure.
Because you've got to
Yeah.
go through, your audience knows this, is when you start a new business, you have to go through that period of you're starting to establish yourself, you're starting to
Hmm.
get clients, you're starting to be known, and you really have to have, you guys have done this year with your podcast. You
Hmm.
have to have that faith and trust that if you continue to do the work, people will be picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you got to commit to it, right, and be intentional about it, which I think is important. And when did how did you get your first client? Like what was was it did you just ask around and network on it? How did you start building
I
this?
think it was asking my coach if she knew anybody or people that
Hmm.
she had coached and see if ultimately they referred me to a guy in New York and we
Hmm.
had a good series of sessions and someone I got referred to was in Vancouver. And then it's like, and then you ask them. Back then, too, I was using LinkedIn to do some cold outreach, cold DMs to people. That was
Hmm.
working, but after COVID, that just stopped working. I think people
Yeah, I
got
was gonna
tired of
say,
all the
yeah,
noise.
There's a lot.
there is a balloon for that to be effective. And you're in the staffing world
Yeah,
full
I,
time,
I
so I'm
get I
sure.
get 15 messages daily from folks. Yeah, it's like it's a tough world, yeah, for sure. And I can imagine that shifted. And are you finding it's more word of mouth and or like and kind
I
of
am
organic? Yeah,
very much so.
right. Yeah.
I mean, it's such a high trust business. It's sort of like, and it's a tough thing saying, hey, do you want to open up your heart to some stranger you've just met and, deal with stuff you'd rather avoid for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find your style right away? Like, because I mean, like your approach, like,
No,
sort of,
no, man.
has it evolved? Yeah.
It's at
Yeah.
first it starts with sort of what I think I should do. And then it's more like, well, what do I think is right? And so the more I do it, the more authentic I get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call out. But it
Uh,
always felt comfortable though, right? Like when you were like
Yeah,
this.
I mean, I've always felt intuitive with people. I've always been a good listener. But
Mhm.
it's like putting a business structure around that, and taking all the tools I got from my mentor. Like she passed away like 8 years ago.
Mhm.
So I got some boost from her, but we worked together for like 16 years to get me fully, dialed in.
sure.
Wow. Yeah.
I can only imagine that when you're working with, high level executives or founders or, people of that nature too, there's a little bit of probably protectiveness, just people guarding because if they, they have their idea
Hmm.
and they are talking to somebody that had a business, right? So, I mean, I'm sure that there's a little bit of like, I can't give away the full details of what this thing that I'm working on is or this thing that I do, my
Hmm.
business, because I'm sure that there's a little bit of concern that like, okay, you could take that if you really wanted to. I know that, you're probably not the guy that's going to do that, but
Mm-mm.
I'm like, that is an element that is kind of the elephant in the room for that sort of thing, right?
And if somebody's worried in coaching, they'll ask you to sign an NDA. I've only been asked to do that once or twice. But I
Hmm.
think what's really the question is somebody going to go deep within themselves to
Yeah,
answer the question? Are they going to be fully transparent even with themselves? Because that's what you have to do to get the really good results.
no
Yeah.
doubt. It probably takes a little bit to get there, I would imagine. Like you really have to build that
You
establish
do.
that trust. And yeah. Do you meet virtually for the most part? Are you ever in
Yep,
person
for the
to meet?
most part.
Okay.
It's all over North America generally, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
because
really cool.
I mean, face to face would be great, but it just seems to be it's not as practical.
Right, right.
Sure,
It's got to be
especially now
reality.
when
Yeah.
everyone's working from home and
Hmm.
everybody's,
Exactly.
or at least some kind of hybrid sort of
Yeah.
thing.
What's the most challenging part about doing this? Like, is it some
Promotion. I
personality?
love actually
Hmm.
coaching people. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
rewarding. It's fulfilling. It's the marketing of the thing because like I said, around COVID, I think everyone and their dog thought, well, I'll just be a coach. And so I get bombarded, every day. It's like, do I want coaching or do I want coaching marketing services? So there's so many agencies just blasting, marketing about all these coaches. So there's a lot of noise and not a ton of signal
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah, it's hard to establish yourself in that space too.
for
And
sure.
that you're the real deal, that you're legit too. Because
Exactly.
yeah,
Hmm.
we get emails. I don't know if you know this. We get emails all the time about, hey, can you boost your podcast marketing?
Yeah.
Or we can
Yeah.
help you do this and we can
Yes.
help you. And it's
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
like I've
Yeah. I got
yeah.
one about a Nigerian prince too that I clicked on. What was going? I don't know if that was the right one, but
The
yeah.
the guy with the bank
The
account
guy with the
thing,
bank account thing.
you
Yeah.
gave it, right?
Yeah, I did. We're good to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, me too. Great.
It's
We're gonna have a
pouring
great
in.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That check's in the mail.
That's right.
It's gonna be
That's
good.
right. And do you ever get, Charles, like that tech itch, when you want to go back out into that world and
Oh
and
man, that's been
yeah,
building lately, and yes,
sure.
and that's why I've been really on fire to see, okay, what can I do to kind of combine the streams, and
Yeah, I
you
was
know,
going to
that's
ask that. Like, is there a way to do that?
that's what like I'm working on creating apps right now for some of the coaching tools that I have, and make that
Mm,
into like a mobile app,
awesome.
so
Awesome.
someone could do some of those processes on their phone and just carry it around with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
that's really
and then
cool. There's
Little,
also
a way to
using,
combine passions.
I'd say a little bit of
yes,
motivation literally on
Uh-huh.
your phone
Right
that's
there.
there for you.
Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
great.
exactly.
What is kind of the big overarching goal? Is it to scale that out then too, and make that into its
Yeah,
own large scale company too?
yeah, I think ultimately it would be, the two things are for me, um, spirituality, and that encompasses a lot for me. It's sort of
Mhm.
like the physics of who we are, what we are, why we're here, all of that, and technology. My logo as a coach, it's a sitting Buddha with a laptop. And it's like, how can we combine these two principles together to serve humanity? And
Hmm.
that's the goal. That's the purpose.
Okay.
That's
If
awesome.
you, okay, if somebody were to come to you with another like high level tech job and say, hey, look, Charles, we know that you're doing this coaching thing, but
Yeah.
we really need somebody to lead our team and we're going to pay you an ungodly sum of money.
Yes.
Would
I
you
would
ever at least
unfortunately have
entertain?
to say no because I'm an entrepreneur in my heart. And it's like I want to build something again. Like your audience, we're creators. And
Hmm.
it's like I need to build this. I want to go through this. It's like I get the cushy job and sure it would be tempting, but and I want to see what's possible here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's
And I
great.
think that is a big mindset thing that a lot of people miss with
Hmm.
entrepreneurship is you got to fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to really enjoy, having the good days when you can have them, but also like knowing bad days are gonna,
Yeah,
like the
and to
struggles are
find
there.
joys in those and learn from them and know it's all temporary, and
Yeah,
you'll get yourself back up. That's a good
yeah.
point.
I mean,
What's
you
the
guys are doing it. I heard in a prior podcast you've done like 100 recordings this year.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and
That's
we're getting
incredible.
episode 100 is coming up here soon, and just in terms of actual
plus all the bonus
recording, but a lot
stuff.
of bonuses. We've been doing this. It'll be 4 years here shortly, which is
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
been
I mean, that's
fun.
incredible commitment on your part.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's been. I mean, there's been days where we're like, okay, and then there's other days where
right.
we're like all in, game on, and it just
Sure,
depends. But
sure.
it's been fun, and we end up inevitably meeting someone new each time that we can connect with, which is the best. And
Yeah,
every time we meet someone, that we think would be a good guest, we'll get it to one the other text be like, I think I just found a really good guest for the show, like
yeah,
all the time, and it's great. We're like, all right, get them on in, we're good to
yeah.
go. So yeah,
I love it.
excited.
What is the what's the motivation on your end? What's the biggest motivator for you then for, building this? Is it just genuinely helping people too, I'm gonna assume?
Yeah, I mean, it's contributing to the awakening of humanity. It's like if you look at the earth right now, and if you look at people, like, and you think about if we were all one person, like how old would that person be? How mature would that person be? And it feels like we're still at that adolescent sort of place. It's like someone who was wise and more mature wouldn't have some of the things in the world that we have.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
like, how do we wake the world up? And one of them
Yeah,
is to do your own work and realize we're not just here to survive, we're here to grow and to go a lot further than that.
yeah,
It's awesome.
absolutely. Well, I love it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's great.
what is the next kind of immediate thing on your plate for like where do you is it building this app or is it what's kind of the like next
I
hurdle?
think I think next is well, continuing is with the coaching and
Hmm.
continuing to do interviews and promote the coaching. But the thing I'm the most excited about right now is, yeah, developing some new technology, developing an app, and seeing where that can go.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Love it.
And if people want to, get a coach, find out more about you, where is the best way to do that?
Best way is to just come to my website. It's CharlesRose.coach
Awesome.
and come see me. We can book a quick intro, a free discovery call.
There we go.
Wonderful. Well, that is in the link to this
Yeah, for sure.
It's fantastic.
The dot coach, the like
Oh yeah,
URL at
yeah,
the end.
yeah.
I like that.
That's sweet.
Thought it'd be fun.
I think
Hmm.
you can get dot podcast now.
Oh,
I
well,
know it's
now we're
evolved
talking. All
and
right.
done.
I
As
like
somebody
that.
that has a website that was a .net,
Yeah, yeah.
because the .com was originally like 3 grand, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did not
It's
have three
not wasn't
grand.
gonna
Well,
happen.
my .com was a jewelry store in Australia named
Oh,
CharlesRose.com. So I
jeez.
was like, okay,
Really?
never mind. I'll just
Not
do
doing
coaching.
that one. Yeah,
Coach is
Coach
Yeah,
kind
is a
of
much
fun.
better.
yeah. So for those that don't know, if you this is behind the scenes, but if
Mm.
you have a domain that was a thing
Mm-hmm.
and then it gets abandoned, guess what? The price gets jacked up
A
immediately
lot.
when somebody else wants to buy it because they think that that's that company trying to buy it back.
Hmm.
So like whoever had breakingandentering.com, I
It
don't know,
was a bunch
probably
of
was
burglars. So yeah,
burglars or a
all
locksmith
prepping for their 2025
or
burglary
yeah,
route.
or a locksmith or
I'm
whatever.
gonna go with burglars. That's
Somebody had it and it disappeared. And
and now
then
you can't get it.
well now you can buy it, but
Yeah,
just for
for an
like
exorbitant amount of money. Yeah,
crazy
I
amount of money
figured.
as opposed to like $10 on
Maybe
GoDaddy
we'll
or
just stick
whatever.
with the net. I like that.
Stick with the .net
.net.
for everything
Awesome.
or and
Yeah,
CharlesRose.coach
there you
as
go.
well.
Well, Charles, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you taking
Thank
time
you so
with us.
much.
And Alan, I forget how to close it out, so go for it.
Okay,
This is
so
your job, not mine.
yeah, so if you are listening, we are the Hustling Sideways podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, if you're listening for the first time or the 94th time, you can check us out. We are everywhere as Hustling Sideways, wherever you get your podcast. We're also on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, TikTok, we are on LinkedIn as well, we're
Hmm.
on YouTube, all of the places. Just look for Hustling Sideways. That's where we're at. If you want to be a guest on the show as well, we've got an email address. It is hustlingsideways@gmail.com. That's how
.com.
Charles actually got in touch with
Uh-huh.
us in the first
That's right.
place.
Yep.
And Jim,
Keep on hustling.
we will see you next week.
Peace.